Well, hi there. This is Bryce, your instructor. I'm going to be teaching with Eileen Med-Surg 2 this year. Y'all had me for Med-Surg 1. You all know me, right? So this video is just an introduction to basically how we're going to be teaching the whole quarter. And so I thought I'd just do a little introduction video to get you used to it, and also let you know a new teaching style that Eileen and I are going to be using. I know during this difficult time and the hardships we're all going through, thank you. Just want to let you know that we're working very hard to, make sure that we make this difficult time transition go well. It's tea. Basically, the purpose of this video is to introduce you to a new teaching style we're going to be using. It's called concept-based. And the reason for this is it's the big thing in nursing education right now. And the reason being is traditionally we've always used a medical school model for teaching, which means teach you the different systems and then have you memorize a whole bunch of stuff on a bunch of pathophysiologies. And there's a lot of nursing instructors out there saying, you know what, we need to teach the nurses how to think and quit memorizing so much stuff. Now, most of you are probably out there right now jumping up and down saying, hooray! But it is going to make you think more critically. So there is a difficult aspect to it. So let me just jump into a slide presentation here, or a PowerPoint, which will illustrate what the difference is between the two. Let me get this all set up here. And I go to share, boink, and here we are. Okay, this new form of teaching is called concept-based curriculum or concept-based teaching. And the purpose of it, like I said, is to get away from the old medical model and start doing something that's more in line with what nursing students do. Let me jump in here. Okay. This is supposed to go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Delay in the system. There's got to be at least a bug or two, right? Okay, here's our traditional medical school model. It's called system-based. And basically what that means is we get a system like respiratory system, cardiac system, genitourinary, gastrointestinal, whatever. And we teach you how it works normally, the physiology, but you should have had most of this already in anatomy and physiology. That's when we studied those systems. And then we start going through and teaching you a pathophys, and then another pathophys, and another pathophys, and another, and another, and another, and another. But pretty soon your head is just full of all these pathophysiologies. What are the signs and symptoms of each of them? How do you assess all of them? What are the medical surgical methods? Blah, 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 blah. And you have this whole brain full of facts and data that you have to memorize for the exam. Now, if you're like me, what you did was you studied those facts for the exam, and then the minute the exam was over, you go poof and do a brain dump, because you have to take a whole nother set of pathophysiologies from the next system and shove them in your ear for the next exam, right? Am I wrong? The problem with this medical school model is, first of all, doctors have 4 years of postgraduate time to study all these pathophysiologies. They go to 4-year bachelor's degree in probably, I don't know, microbiology, biology, nursing, whatever. Then they get 4 more years to study every single system in the body. Then they usually have a year of internship where they learn how to take all that knowledge and apply it. And some specialties, they'll have 3 years of residency. So they not only get to pick a particular system, but they get 3 years to work on that system alone, like nephrology, cardiology, etc. That's a lot of time. You guys got 1 year, right? Right. Another reason doctors have to study under this model is because they are going to be the ones that are responsible for diagnosing the patient, ordering the labs, ordering all the tests, and writing the prescriptions for the medications that they're going to be using. You guys don't do any of that. You're going to be caring for the patient symptoms. You're going to be carrying out the doctor's orders. And frankly, they get paid more. You know, they go through all this schooling and all of this crap, and they get a big paycheck for it. You're not going to make as much as the doctors. So what are we going to do instead? Instead, the nursing model now for concept-based nursing is to start with a concept. A concept can be something like, mobility, infection, inflammation, psychosocial issues, adapting to activities of daily living. This is what we do. This is where the rubber meets the road for nurses. Now, first thing we will do within this curriculum is we define the concept. You know, what is mobility? It's the ability for people to get up and move around and use their musculoskeletal system to do activities of daily living. So we do want to see, you know, how this works normally. But how mobility works normally, we're all pretty much familiar with that. We do it every day. And then we use what's called exemplars. Exemplars are another name for the examples of what happens when something goes wrong. So in other words, an exemplar is a pathophysiology. And what we'll do is we only take a couple pathophysiologies and study those. And the reason we do that is we want you to learn how that pathophysiology affects the concept. How does a pathophysiology affect mobility? Well, you break your leg. It's a fracture. That's a pathophysiology. How does that affect your mobility? As nurses, we're the ones responsible for getting them mobile again, or at least helping them with their range of motion. Now, with each of these, we will still study the etiology and assessment of that pathophysiology, as well as what is the doctor going to do? What medical and surgical management is the doctor going to use on that patient? It's still important that we know what the doctors are going to be doing with the patient because we're responsible for carrying out their orders, interpreting the labs, etc., giving them the medications. And then we're also going to study what the nursing management is of that patient. And that's where your care plans come in, because your care plans explain to you how you're going to manage that patient. Now, the advantage to this model is we're using concepts rather than body systems. The concepts could almost be interpreted as like the signs and symptoms of the patient, but that's what we as nurses work with. You're going to have fewer pathophysiologies. Okay, this is where you can cheer. You're not going to be memorizing signs and symptoms and characteristics of 14 different pathophysiologies. I've tried to limit it to only 3 pathophysiologies per concept, but sometimes we have to do break that concept up into a couple areas. For example, mobility. There's a concept, we deal with fractures, but then there may be also other musculoskeletal things too. So we're dealing with the skeletal system, but then we'll see mobility again when we talk about the muscle system. So you're going to see how all of these concepts and all of these body systems tie together, hopefully into a holistic whole, which allows you to do analysis of what's going on and do critical thinking. And the third reason that the concept model, the reason I like the concept model is because the concepts are more in line with nursing diagnoses. Now, there's been a lot of confusion, I know, in Med-Surg 1 and probably Intro to Med-Surg, where we ask you to put a nursing diagnosis on the care plan and you end up putting a medical diagnosis. Well, here we're focusing on concepts, which are pretty parallel to nursing diagnoses. You know, it's pretty crazy for us to say, well, we're going to talk about congestive heart failure, congestive heart failure, congestive heart failure. And then we tell you, do a nursing care plan, your first inclination is going to say, congestive heart failure. Well, no, it's altered perfusion. Okay, we'll kind of throw that at you in the sideline. You go, what? If we'd have started teaching from the beginning saying, we're going to study perfusion, here's an example of altered perfusion, congestive heart failure. Now, when you get to your care plan, what are you going to put down? Well, he's having a trouble with perfusion. So that's how the concepts are more in line with what we as nurses do. Let me give you an example. Mobility. What nursing diagnosis would go with the concept of mobility? Impaired mobility. How about infection? Risk of infection. How about pain? How about pain? You know, you can see the concepts we're using are very much in line with the nursing diagnoses. So just to kind of summarize this, we like the concept-based curriculum, CBC, because it's more in line with what us nurses actually do. It's a simpler format, so we'll hopefully not be having you memorize the signs and symptoms of 14 different pathophysiologies. And it's also going to teach critical thinking skills, because when somebody comes by and says, this patient has congestive heart failure, you need a nursing care plan, what are we going to do? You are going to have to put those pieces together. We're not going to outline them for you. We're not going to make you memorize the signs and symptoms of that congestive heart failure. You're going to have to figure out how you as a nurse are going to treat the congestive heart failure. So it's going to be a little extra work on your part, because you got to put the pieces together. But that's what you need to do when you get into the real world. So that's what we want to give you practice at. I think that's the end of it. My last slide. Go forth and conquer. You'll be seeing a lot more videos like this in the near future, and I hope to be in touch with each of you when we start doing our clinicals on Mondays and Tuesdays. And I will definitely be in touch with all of you. So enjoy your vacation, and we'll be seeing you when you get back. Bye-bye. And I just have to figure out how to stop the recording.